The survey was just a bit off, but because the whole project would be based off of it, everything was affected down the line. And the project came to a halt. But here's the problem. Landis Litz is in a revolving door of justice. For almost every crime, judges give her probation. And almost every time, she violates probation. Even if it is legal, the amount of water the community is using is astonishing. In the past year, they've used nearly 46 million gallons of water. That's enough to fill up this pool 130 times. But when the caller biked back through the area 40 minutes later, there were no fire trucks, no ambulances, no police officers to help the elderly man. Frustrated, he called 911. County transferred him to city dispatch. Good afternoon, I'm Kim Holland. A Grinch has struck in the form of vandals who ripped through classrooms at an Albuquerque public school.
I started painting in the morning, and the next thing I know, I've been in my own little world for so long, I'm going, oh my God, it's dark.
Nikki Smith-Wilden finds peace in painting.
It relaxes me. It makes you forget about everything else that's going on around you. Usually I'll have like 4 or 5 going at the same time.
This Farmington artist, who has painted for 2 presidents and had her work in galleries, is painting for different reasons these days.
You kind of feel like you get to know them as you paint them.
With every brushstroke, Smith-Wilden gets to know the people killed by drunk drivers.
And I've got from little babies up to, there was a lady that was 80-some years old that was killed.
From only a photograph, Smith-Wilden tries to capture their life, if only in paint.
To me, it's always their eyes that show so much. You know, he looks like he's a real happy-go-lucky kid that just really enjoys life.
Smith-Wilden tries to bring out fun-loving 21-year-old Scott Costley, who adored motocross, golf, and had a passion for life.
It's been tough every day.
Police say a drunk driver killed Costley in September in Gallup. The loss has been devastating on his family, friends, and the Gallup community.
Having a friend like that around, yeah, it's the hardest part, not having that around.
But Smith-Wilden is trying to brush away some of the victims' pain through her portraits. She's painted more than 50 of them.
To let their families know that they didn't die in vain, that they're not forgotten. They're not just a statistic somewhere.
This drunk driving crash is the reason Smith-Wilden is involved. She was here on I-25 near Santa Fe 3 years ago, just minutes before Dana Pabst crashed head-on into a family, killing 5 of them. Smith-Wilden says this could have been her fate. But it bothered her that more people knew about Dana Pabst than the victims.
They knew there were 5 people killed and some kids. That's all they knew. They didn't know their name, they didn't know how old they are, they didn't know what they looked like. And I thought that's so unfair.
So with little information about the victim and an obsession to get it right, Smith-Wilden puts paint to canvas.
Well, the eyes to me are the most important, and then you've got to get their nose just right, their mouth, their teeth, their ears, everything.
Only the ones who knew the victim will know if Smith-Wilden got the details just right.
Hoping it's good enough for the family. Hi! Hi!
Scott Costley's father didn't know about this New Year's gift.
I'm sorry they didn't.
Painting is going to be nice to have because that kind of gives us a lot more meaning than a photo, you know, because it was made for a purpose.
Smith-Wilden hopes to bring some brightness in such a dark time. Kim Holland, KRQE News 13.
And then I do a lot of presentations.
They were supposed to be classes to help teach a divorced mother how to raise her children with her ex-husband.
To help us with our co-parenting as well as communication skills.
But what Holly Salzman says she got was something much different.
It's very inappropriate.
On the face of it, yeah, it looks pretty problematic.
Every week for the past 2 months, Salzman has been meeting with Mary Pepper at a city library. Pepper touts herself as an educator, a mentor, a teacher for couples. But Salzman says she was not prepared for what else she says Pepper taught.
I walked into the session and the very first thing she said to me was, I start my sessions by praying. And when I expressed my concerns that I didn't pray, she said, well, this is what I do. and she proceeded to say a prayer out loud.
There's nothing wrong with prayer, but it becomes questionable in this case. That's because these sessions were court-ordered. The classes were part of District Court's Family Court Clinic. It provides services in child custody cases to reduce conflict. At the end of last year, Salzman was ordered by the courts to attend 10 sessions with Mary Pepper.
You don't have a choice. You do it or you're in contempt of court.
Salzman says she called the court after the first meeting with Pepper, complaining about the religion she says Pepper pushed on her.
Offended, disgusted.
Salzman never heard back from the court. The second class with Pepper, Salzman says she opened with a prayer again.
We went back to court. I expressed concerns again about the religious overtones, and they had stated that they hadn't heard any problems concerning Mary Pepper with religion.
So Salzman stopped going to the court-ordered classes. The result? The court took her kids away.
It's probably the worst thing I've ever been through in my life.
To get her kids back, she says she had to finish the classes, and she says the religious pressure continued. Handouts with psalms, quotes, for resolving conflict, ask yourself in this situation, how can I honor, glorify, and please Christ our Lord? And then there was this homework, who is God to me?
With every session, there was some sort of religion that was intertwined with the sessions.
In the final 3 sessions with Mary Pepper, we heard religion brought up many times.
The meaning of my life is to know, love, and serve God.
This is undercover video and audio of Salzman's sessions with Pepper.
I don't know if you want to explore just kind of the past of how God was in your life or not in your life. Okay. Just kind of like an exploring. And I know you don't believe in God, which is fine, but I know at a certain point He was in your life in some way.
We caught up with Mary Pepper after one of her sessions.
I am a believer myself, and if a person is open, we talk about God. If they're not open, it's a secular program that I provide.
And this is just a state-ordered program.
So I'm a private business that people decide to come through or not, and the particular person there was very interested in analyzing her belief system.
Salzman denies that. District Court would not comment on a pending case, but says it does not refer parties to religious-based counseling, and if religion is offered, it's optional. While the court does not run the sessions or pay for them, they are court-ordered.
No one should have to be put into a position where they are forced to accept training or therapy that violates their own religious beliefs and morals.
The ACLU doesn't know all the facts of this case, but believes if the courts are funneling clients to religious-based counseling, it could violate the separation of church and state.
We've got protections in our country here under the Bill of Rights that are intended to try and stop that.
The ACLU would like to know if the court is aware of Pepper's religious offerings in her program. We would like to know too, but the court won't answer that question.
I don't believe that my program has religious overtones.
But there are more red flags. Pepper holds her meetings in public libraries.
Because that way I can keep my costs down.
But she's not allowed to work here. City policy forbids the sale of products or services on library property. Salzman says Pepper is aware of that, claiming she has her clients book the rooms and pay her in cash.
And she had actually explained to me that you need to be discreet about it because I'm not allowed to exchange money in the public library. So I had to kind of hide the money and then literally pass it under the table.
Tell me about the payment. How do clients pay?
I think that this interview needs to be ended, and I think if you'd like to know more in private, I can explain a lot about my business, but to do this on the air is not appropriate.
We asked again about the payments off camera. Pepper wouldn't answer. After a month, Salzman got her kids back, and she completed her mandatory 10 classes with Pepper. Congratulations. Kim Holland, KRQE News 13. It's one of the biggest parties in the country. A musical lineup that draws people from all around the world. Among the crowds, 4 City of Albuquerque employees who attended this shindig for free. City coffers covered the cost, and it wasn't cheap.
I think it's outrageous that we would go out and spend that kind of money.
We have to be mindful when we spend public money. I think it's excessive.
More than 500,000 people attended this year's New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. Back in April, people saw hundreds of musical performers jam on a dozen stages, including Elton John, Lady Gaga, Lenny Kravitz, and many more. In the crowd for the opening weekend, 4 managers for Albuquerque's Cultural Services Department. Eric Werner and Bree Ortiz are Operations and Events Managers for community events. Marianne Torres is the Operations and Events Manager at the Biopark. And Linda Hubley is the Operations and Events Manager at the Balloon Museum.
The folks who went are the folks who manage community events, including Summerfest, Freedom 4th, Twinkle Light Parade.
The 4 were chosen to attend the Jazz Fest on business, to gather ideas in New Orleans and bring them back to Albuquerque for events here. They didn't just fly in for a day to check it out and leave. They stayed at a high-end hotel near the water. They were able to get up close to the bands. And they partied in style at the VIP tent. In all, they were in New Orleans for 6 fun-filled days.
You don't need to send 4 individuals to a concert with VIP tickets. I think it's outrageous, and that's where we lose the public's trust.
Betty Rivera, the Director of Cultural Services, hand-selected them to go. Why did you feel it necessary to send 4 rather than 1 or 2?
I felt that it was important for them as a team to go.
The city employees hopped on a Southwest flight to New Orleans for $650 apiece. Then each spent more than $1,100 on hotels. And what would Jazz Fest be without the Grand Marshal VIP package? That's another $1,000 per head. Throw in $650 for taxis, $1,300 on food, and now you have a trip that cost the city more than $13 grand. The money came from a special revenue fund which helps feed the animals at the zoo, for example, and pays performers. The public money comes from some ticket event sales and people and organizations that rent out city facilities. Rivera believes the city is already seeing the rewards of the New Orleans trip. The employees saw the revelers at the New Orleans Jazz Fest and signed them up for last Friday's zoo music. Rivera says the employees also scouted Jazz Fest for other ideas.
It included performers, it included a location of restrooms, location of restaurants, location of the tents.
Rivera says this year's Freedom 4th celebration here at Balloon Fiesta Park will have a VIP tent with its own restrooms and a better view of the concert stage and fireworks. Ideas that Rivera says came from the New Orleans trip and justify the $1,000 VIP tickets for Jazz Fest.
We did the VIP portion of it because they were able to see a whole bunch more there than they would have had they just gone in as a general admission person.
City Councilor Ken Sanchez attended the Jazz Fest 15 years ago on his own.
It was huge. It was a very big party.
And says this was not money well spent.
I don't see any reason why 4 individuals were allowed to go on this trip when one person could have probably have done the job.
Councilor Brad Winter, who kept tabs on a massive budget during his career at APS, also believes the city squandered public money.
If they're going to do trips to help improve services with public money, you got to be mindful, are you getting a better return than what you're giving?
A storm forced the city to pay for an extra night in New Orleans after their flight home was canceled. Rivera says that allowed them to learn about an evacuation plan. But their Facebook post read, "Being stuck in New Orleans isn't all that bad," as they dined on oysters. Looking back, Rivera is reassessing the trip.
Yeah, maybe we should have sent maybe 2 people.
Are you looking at other trips in the future?
I'm not sure because I haven't really considered it since they've gone and since you've asked me all these questions. And you've made me feel like maybe I should, think about it.
Kim Holland, KRQE News 13.
I think either somebody's going to end up getting hurt.
The cars would get them and run them over.
It's not hard to spot them. Drivers breaking the law, putting kids in danger.
The bus makes me so nervous. So usually I just pick her up.
School bus drivers say it happens way too often.
So I put up my stop sign and then she took off.
The law says when the red lights are flashing and the stop arm comes out, a driver must be 10 feet or more from the school bus. But we found that doesn't always happen. We rode along with Rio Rancho school bus drivers as they delivered kids to and from school. Take a look at this. 15 kids get off at this stop.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And some cross the wide street. Traffic comes to a halt, but watch the brown station wagon in front. The driver doesn't wait for the bus lights to go off or the stop sign to fold back against the bus. She ignores it all and forges ahead. Her business apparently more important than the kids' safety.
Kids aren't even done crossing the road yet.
What's concerning? That driver may not see the kids that dart unexpectedly into the road.
I still had a kid behind the bus crossing the road when she left.
Driver Dan Hilborn says he sees these lawbreakers at least once a week, zipping past his stop arm, even up on the curb. The same day we caught this driver blowing past the stop sign in the afternoon, 3 other drivers did the same thing on Hilborn's morning route.
Once we pop out the sign, they bolt.
School officials worry one impatient driver may hurt or kill a child.
Many years ago in Rio Rancho, when I was a police officer, we had an occasion where an elderly woman passed on the right side of a school bus. She was driving into the sun and ended up injuring 7 kids.
During our ride-along, we saw other lawbreakers try to outrun the stop arm. The bus lights are on as this driver guns it just before the stop sign comes out. Here's another one. Lights on and the maroon car flies by. We witnessed another driver do the same thing just out of the camera's view.
I had the door open right here like this to stop her. She went right by us.
John Salazar came just inches from the driver as he picked up his grandkids.
They fly by here, and there's no need for this, you know what I mean?
Police rarely ticket drivers for these violations. The law says the officer has to witness the crime.
We've had police officers at times follow buses when we've had incidences in areas that were well known for stop sign runners.
Police may not be watching, but someone is. Bus driver Dan Hilborn even recognizes many of the frequent flyers.
One that mostly does it there is a green pickup truck.
Drivers that continue to put kids at risk.
Have a good day, guys. See you tomorrow.
Kim Holland, KRQE News 13.
Well, that sky looks nice. You can find beauty almost anywhere. Here we go.
Bill Tondreau.
The beauty here is this exceedingly simple scene.
Wants people to see the beauty of Albuquerque.
Oh yeah, I'm still actively working on it.
As he sees it.
I kept seeing these great scenes, these really wonderful scenes, and I kept saying to myself, gee, why aren't people taking pictures of these?
He fell in love with photography as a kid.
My earliest memories of photography were as a 4-year-old watching my mother.
But recently perfected a new skill. A decade ago, he picked up his digital camera and captured the sun slipping down the Sandia Mountains, stretching across the high desert, and quickly turned an amateur photographer
Something clicked.
into a renowned artist.
Through totally undeserved beginner's luck, got one of my best pictures ever, one of my best sellers ever, that very first night.
But these aren't just any photos. Tondreau uses a distinctive technique he perfected almost 1,000 miles away in Hollywood. Decades ago, Tondreau wrote the computerized software that creates the same camera motion multiple times to overlay scenes, crucial for special effects. He also designed the dollies and electronics. For more than 30 years, the system has been used in thousands of movies, including huge blockbuster ones, most recently the Lord of the Rings series.
And that repeat motion camera was used to be able to mix together normal-sized people at Hobbit scale, at 3 foot 6 inches.
Then in 1988, Tondreau moved to Albuquerque.
I said, oh no, Albuquerque?
Kicking and screaming.
Are you kidding? That's out in the middle of desolation.
He was forced to come.
This really peculiar thing.
For important medical treatment.
It was life-threatening, yeah. It was a brain tumor. It was an experimental treatment. And it was very successful. And on about the 3rd week of that, I realized how my blood pressure had gone down, how I was a lot more relaxed. By golly, I just decided to stay.
In 2005, Tondreau started using some of his skills he perfected in the movies to create his unique Albuquerque photographs. Overlapping shots with different focus and exposures, capturing the city as the light glides across the landscape.
These very elaborate sequences required to shoot these long stitched, joined together panoramas. We'll move the camera to the next position, overlapping the previous one a little bit. To shoot a 9-picture panorama might mean that I have to shoot 36 or 72 or more pictures.
Tondreau's art is a top seller at this gallery at 6th and Central.
I sell at least one a day, if not 6 to 8.
I had gone out to that location almost every day for an entire summer. The river happened to be pretty high. This was late October here.
Showcasing Albuquerque to the rest of the country.
We're all honored to have him. He's an incredible gift to the city of Albuquerque.
I started shooting this about 15 minutes before sunset.
Thousands of Tondro's photographs are scattered all over the U.S. No pun intended, the overexposure of the photos, if they're everywhere, that doesn't bother you?
No, as long as people enjoy them.
Tondro is now gearing up for his prime photo season, late summer to early fall, when colors are vibrant.
That's the season when Albuquerque is this, especially says cheese. Albuquerque is a marvelously photogenic city. I think people forget or get too used to it.
Kim Holland.
These are the story of Albuquerque.
KRQE News 13. Good afternoon, I'm Kim Holland. A Grinch has struck in the form of vandals who ripped through classrooms at an Albuquerque public school, causing thousands of dollars in damage. News 13's David Romero is live at Wilson Middle School in southeast Albuquerque with the details. David? Albuquerque police have named the carjacking suspect fatally shot by officers. They say he's been identified as 19-year-old Jose Rodriguez. APD says Rodriguez was identified through fingerprints. Officers were called out about reports of an attempted armed carjacking yesterday morning. They say they found Rodriguez near Central in Utah. That's when shots were fired. It's unknown who shot first. The two officers, a man and a woman who have been with the department since 2001, have been placed on administrative leave. Snow is falling in New Mexico. There have even been flakes in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. So how will it affect your plans? Here's meteorologist Mark Ronchetti.
Kim, we're looking at two different situations here. One is that pattern that we have in place, which is pushing occasional snow showers into the metro and some heavy snow at times over the mountains and occasionally into Santa Fe, as you mentioned, too. Here's a look from Sandia Peak where we've seen things just start to clear out, at least temporarily up here. Might well see some more snow showers there in the coming hours. We do still have those winter storm warnings, especially up across the Jemez and areas of the San Juan Mountains, too. The wind advisories continue across the east and up across and just to the east of our mountain chains, too, and out into west central sections. Here's a look at what's going on, and you can see basically just scattered showers in the form of rain and snow across the area here, thanks to some really fast jet action above us. A couple of little weak weather disturbances mixed in here, eventually touching off some rain and snow across the area here. The Jemez getting it again, and parts of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, especially the west and then facing slopes and northwest facing slopes too. So we'll watch all of this coming up. The big event is over the weekend and a very powerful storm that's going to have an impact on a wide area of the state. The question is, will that track bring it into New Mexico and allow widespread heavy snow? We'll talk about all of that coming up in just a few minutes.
A UNM football player has died in a car crash on the way home for the holidays. UNM officials say 20-year-old Markel Bird was killed when his car's tire blew out on I-40 just across the New Mexico state line in Arizona. Just before the New Mexico Bowl, News 13's Van Tate spoke with Bird about playing in the bowl game.
I'm just happy we got another opportunity to play another game. I don't really know what's in store for us, but I'm excited.
Bird's vehicle rolled 3 times. Markel was thrown from the car. His girlfriend, Alexis Ortiz, was taken to the hospital. She's expected to be okay. Most fans remember Markel for this play. He made the winning tackle at the 4-yard line against Boise State. Memorial services and funeral arrangements have not yet been set. A state district court judge ordered a mental evaluation for a repeat burglary suspect whose charges keep getting dropped. 24-year-old Anthony Chavez will now be sent to a behavioral health center to determine whether he's competent to stand trial in the 11 different burglary cases pending against him. Chavez was previously accused of a string of burglaries in Albuquerque from 2010 to 2013. Those charges were dismissed after a doctor found him incompetent to stand trial. Police say an Albuquerque driver who's already killed a man was arrested again. 31-year-old Miranda Pacheco was taken into custody after APD responded to a crash near Edith and Avenida Cesar Chavez yesterday. APD says Chavez was driving on a suspended license. Officers say she told them she was only driving to get to a drug court appearance. Back in 2010, Pacheco veered off the road, killing cyclist Dave Anderson. Police say she had been driving recklessly. An Albuquerque man must wait 25 years before he gets out of prison. Sean Riles was sentenced today for stabbing 19-year-old Guadalupe Morales more than 30 times back in 2013. Riles then put her body in the trunk of a car, drove it behind the Walmart near Coors and I-40, and set it on fire. He testified that they had been drinking at the time and had no recollection of what happened. Riles was found guilty of second-degree murder, as well as arson and tampering with evidence. Another reminder not to drink and drive this holiday season. Today, APD and the city of Albuquerque announced DWI officers will be on the lookout for drunk drivers. They say you'll be seeing more patrols and DWI checkpoints that will continue into 2016.
And then we have officers on tactical operations throughout the city, and they will be looking for those DWI offenders throughout the year, and then we'll have a total of 37 checkpoints in the upcoming year.
APD says 166 people were killed in New Mexico last year in crashes involving drunk drivers. The New Mexico Department of Transportation announced a new program aimed at stopping drunk drivers. Those signs that traditionally provide drivers with traffic and weather updates will now display anti-DWI messages like driver hammered, get nailed, and drunk driving, meet a cop. The signs will be set up around the state. The man who admitted to killing 3 people at a Colorado Planned Parenthood is demanding he represent himself. Robert Deere made the announcement at a status hearing today that he no longer wants the Colorado Public Defender's Office to represent him. Deere says he can't trust his attorney because he believes he is competent to stand trial. The judge then cleared the courtroom so that Deere could talk privately with his lawyer. Today is expected to be one of the busiest travel days of the year as millions of people begin the journey to their holiday destinations. And there are big changes for airline passengers. Don Champion reports.